The year you only put in 2 digits.
You want
And you can put in the VIN number if you guys like to track VIN numbers. Most of my customers use the last 6 or the last 8. But it's not necessary. Just the dark gray is mandatory. The light gray is non-mandatory. So the space bar takes you to heavy duty vehicles. And then we click on that and we open it up and then we look for our selection. We're working on a Peterbilt, so we can touch P for Peterbilt, and then we just look for our axle code on the truck and open it up and choose the proper axle. On the older trucks, the tag was on the front axle out of aluminum riveted on there, and it stayed for a long time. But newer trucks now, they put paper tags, and they only stick around for a couple of years. So if you can't find the axle code, don't beat yourself up. Just pick the closest thing you can. The specs for tow are all very close. So we looked underneath the front of this truck and we found that it had an E1200, which is Eaton Spicer, and the 12 means that it's a 12,000 pound axle. So we'll go ahead and look for that and select it.
What's the element W in the...
Alright, so at the top of the screen we've got that yellow highlighted bar, and it says tow reference diameter must be entered. What we need to do is measure the diameter of the front tire with the tire measuring tool. So we're just taking the overall diameter of the tire with that tool.
37, 38.
And then we enter that in that box, and you'll see that it populates the tow. It'll populate total tow when you hit enter. So if you are ever doing an alignment and your tow spec is gray instead of red or green, it means that you did not do that. And you can go back up on the procedure bar on the right hand side of the screen, and you can go back up to show vehicle specifications or recall vehicle specs. Yeah, show vehicle specifications, and it'll give you an opportunity to enter that if you need to.
Okay.
So now you just go to the next box, which is mount sensors. And these particular turn plates don't have pins or turn plate bridges, but we make sure the wheels are steered straight ahead and the sensors are mounted, they're unlocked, powered up, and we drove the truck in and we centered the front axle at 22 inches back from the turn plates, which there's a black mark there that designates that. And then we hit ready, and that should give us 6 red bar graphs on the screen. And now we just need to roll the truck forward to compensate the sensors.
As long as they have to listen to your corny voice and not mine.
So what we've done is we've spaced this wheel chock out at 22 inches using that little drumstick as a spacer. That gives us 22 inches of roll forward, and we just need to remove that wheel chock back there to let the truck move forward. Yeah. And being as we're down here a little bit, it may move. If not, just push it. Go ahead and push it, that way you can see it. So we roll the truck forward. Now we've got 6 red bar graphs that turn green. So we've compensated, and when we've got our numbers. Now, on that bar graph screen, if you ever get one that turns red and never goes green, chances are one of these sensor extensions into the casting is not tight. So it means this butterfly right here is loose, and this sensor shaft can rotate in there and it will not compensate. So you always make sure that these are nice and tight. So now we've got our numbers on the screen, and we've got thrust angle, scrub angle, and our total tow. Alright, and remember how I was telling you that scrub angle is referenced off of thrust angle, and if one is negative and one is positive, they will absorb into one another. So thrust angle references scrub, so scrub is referenced off of thrust angle. So when you change thrust angle, you're going to change scrub angle also. So when, in this particular case, because this is a negative and that's a positive, when we fix this thrust angle, it's going to fix that scrub angle also. So go ahead and hit measure caster. And the wheels were steered straight enough ahead that's going to automatically take that, I believe. Yep. So now we just need to level and lock the front sensors and then steer for caster. Okay, so the wheels were steered straight ahead and it automatically took the first part of steering for caster. He's level and locked the front sensors. So now he's going to go ahead and steer the vehicle to the left and get in the green bar graph. And that's about half a turn on the steering wheel. Just hold it in the lower part of the valley for a second. It'll take that measurement, and then we're going to move to the right about one turn of the steering wheel, and that will get the other bar graph in the green. And then after it captures that, we're going back on center. And this is very touchy. The machine is always about 2 seconds behind you, and you need to hold it in the lower part of the green valley for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then it'll measure and capture the caster.
That was so good. And then you learn how to sell it. Ordered Spanx stuff yesterday. I was able to drill that bolt out.
So now we've got our measurement screen, and it shows our caster. We've got 4.1 on the passenger side, 3.6 on the driver's side. So we've got a perfect half a degree caster split, which will help this vehicle for road crown, because the truck will always pull towards the lower number caster if the caster split is over half a degree. And that's your caster split half a degree, and that will help the truck up the hill for road crown. And in certain cases you may have to have a 1 degree caster split to keep the truck from pulling, but most of the time half a degree will do it. So now we click Save Before Measurements, and we can set our steering wheel status here if we want to notate if it was level before the alignment. So we hit ready. And we've gone to thrust angle now, and we know we're working on that axle because of this highlighted gray box with the wrench next to it on the rearmost axle. So this thing has got negative thrust angle, which means it's on the driver's side, so the axle is pointing forward on the passenger side 3/16, well, it's about 1/8 of an inch degree. So we need to move this axle forward on the passenger side, or that side of the axle has to come back on the driver's side. And we would just look back on the truck to see how we make those adjustments. Okay, so alright, so this is, we've got negative 0.18 thrust angle on this. This is the passenger side, and we've got some washers in there that we can take out, which will be about 1/8 of an inch, and we can square up thrust angle on this truck.
Did you guys measure that?
Yeah, so now I've got browse videos at the top of the screen, so I hit that question mark, and I can come down to rear axle shim adjust, and this will show a video of how to adjust that rear axle. Alright, and one thing I do want to say here, when you make that adjustment, if you make more than 1/8 of an inch adjustment, you definitely want to jack that rear axle up and get both tires off the ground and relax it and set it back down, because with the tires on the ground you won't get all the movement of the axle. You'll gain another 2 to 3 hundredths just by jacking it up and setting it back down. And one other thing I'll mention with that is, for y'all that have a tight turn into your alignment bay, it's important that the truck be straightened out before you do the alignment on it. So you may have to back it up as far as you can and get the axles in the forward running position just like it goes down the road. So once we would make the adjustment, that would turn green and we would look for like 0 inches, and then we would hit OK, and we're going to go to the next screen, which is camber and toe numbers on that rear axle. And it's very important on rear axles that the total toe is what we're looking for. We can identify a bent rear axle, and the total toe number at 0.50 or higher would designate a bent rear axle, and that thing will be a tire eater until it's replaced or straightened out. So now we hit adjust scrub angle, and we would make the adjustment needed here. This is showing passenger side needs to go forward 1/8 of an inch, so we would put shims in that passenger side, or we would take shims out of the driver's side since it's a shim forward suspension. So now we hit OK, and we are at our total toe screen again, camber and toe numbers. We've got 0.05, which is great. 0.50 is our threshold for total toe, and we just moved our adjust camber caster screen then. And on this screen, now this is where some guys make some mistakes. These are not your caster numbers on the screen where it says 3.5 and 4.1. If I go over here and rock this right front sensor, look what happens to your caster numbers. They go all over the place, okay? Those are not your accurate caster numbers. You have to go down to K2, show measurements. Those are your actual frozen caster measurements. So don't make that mistake on the adjust camber caster screen. Now verify caster is on the screen. If we made a caster adjustment, we would have to re-sweep that. And we did not make a caster adjustment on this truck, so we're going to hit verify caster and then bypass the measurement. And now we're on our adjust axle setback screen. So the steer head on this is still off because we did not adjust thrust angle for this video. So we're just going to bump the wheels. I'm just going to bump the wheels a little bit to the right. And, whoa, too much. Yeah, just knocked me in a little bit. Alright, so we're in the green to where we can see our axle setback number. This particular truck's got positive 0.08 setback, and setback is extremely important compared to geometric center line. If the setback is off by more than 0.50, the truck is going to pull in the direction it's pointing, which in this case this is positive, which is the passenger side of the truck, negative is the driver's side. So if that was bent, you would get under there and look for loose U-bolts, the center pin to be broke off, or the front axle has been in an accident or something like that. So now we're going to hit adjust toe. And in this case, the toe on this truck is negative, which is typical for a road tractor that's gone through a tire cycle. They have a tendency to go negative over time as the suspension components wear. So this is typical of what we would see with a full life cycle. So this truck needs to be adjusted positive, and we would make that adjustment under there. Most of the time it's a 15/16 and an open end wrench, and get a pipe wrench under there and move your cross tube to adjust that toe until you get the arrow in the middle of the screen. And when you're adjusting toe, when you finish, you want to have steer head as close to 0 as possible, because that can affect your toe number. So we like to get that steer head a little closer. That's what I get for trying to do videos at the same time. This one steers a little better. Go ahead and get it right, and then I'll pick it back up.